Good evening. I'd like to call Property Management Committee to order. First order of business, approval of minutes.
So moved.
Motion, I hear a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, first order of business, Forest Road property.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And all right, we've had this ongoing discussion about the Lawrence Road property. And I think back when we had our August meeting here, we disclosed to you that we were going to do our due diligence, you might say, when we executed the additional 120 days when we signed the agreement to purchase. All of that to say we've done two environmental studies. Environmental study number one was a phase one environmental study. We may have already covered this, but I'll review it anyway so it'll all flow together. And this particular study found nothing on our property that was an environmental concern, period. But in the process of doing these phase one environmental studies, they have to look at adjoining properties in the neighborhood to see if there's some things there that might potentially have some impact on this piece of property. So this phase one study found, and they already knew about this before they did the study actually, that across the street from us on at least two adjacent properties, over the years there's been some things that have occurred, not at the piece of property that's directly across the street from us, which is owned by the city of Murfreesboro. That's their site there that they purchased in recent years. But a bit further south and west of that, there was some manufacturing activity that has put some contaminants in the ground. So they had to disclose that to us, and therefore that puts us in a position of having to determine what's on our property. Now what is there is only in groundwater, even with the city of Murfreesboro has been working with the same kind of difficulties we have here for these last several years. So in order to find a way to indemnify ourselves, you might say, and remove us from liability for any of these things that are in this groundwater, we have, you can enter into a brownfield agreement, which we'll talk about that in just a little bit here. But we engaged Griggs and Maloney to do a phase two environmental. And that consisted of us drilling 2 wells on this property that we're proposing to purchase. And we had, within our agreement to purchase, they gave us permission, the owners did, to let us actually drill just to determine what was there. So that we've done, and here is Mr. Jeff Reed to now support this discussion that will tell us more about this brownfield. But so I'm just giving them an overview of sort of where we've been and where we are. So we drilled those 2 wells, and I've given you this, let's look, and you can see on the big piece of paper, the blue, here Jeff, you're already aware of this, but anyway, that's not on the, these 2 pieces are not on their iPads here. But the blue piece of property is the 22.5 acres that we're proposing to purchase. And in order for us to determine if we had a groundwater problem, we have had 2 wells drilled. And you can see Rutherford County well number 1 and Rutherford County well number 2. All right, and this little piece of paper here that has the results of the analysis of the water, the groundwater they drill down. You can see, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 readings from the city's previous wells across the road from us, just for comparative analysis. The last 2 columns is Rutherford County well 1 and Rutherford County well 2. And you can see that in Rutherford County well number 1, only one thing that they tested for is even detectable. Everything else is not even detectable. And if you go back over to column 2, that column there are the safe drinking water standards. And so there's nothing in well number 1 that exceeds the standard. See, the standard is 005 for that benzene, and it's 002. So that all of that, which is furthest removed in a northeast, northwesterly direction from the property that we're purchasing there, there's nothing there. Now, well number 2 is directly, and well number 7 also that the city has there, that well number 7 in it, right at the top of the red area, there's nothing there either of any concern. But then at well number 8, which is directly across the road there from well number 2, you can see that it had some contaminants. Only one of those, I believe, the very last one, vinyl chloride, it was 0074, which exceeded the 002 standard. All right, so that well's a tiny bit out of compliance, and you can see that the wells that are further away are even, so as we move toward our property, coming across the property that the city has there, that the contaminant is decreasing. So even at well number 2, there's only one component out of compliance, and that's 00439, which is more than 002. So it's even less, about half of what it is across the road in well number 8. All that being said, we still have to do something about that. That is there. Now, all that being said, we might I'll decide when we can, Mr. Jeff will want to go through, but there is this ability for us to voluntarily enter into this so-called brownfield agreement, and we're able to do this. This will suffice for remediation of this hazardous substance. That's on the first page. For us who did not generate, transport, or release this contamination that is addressed here. So we had nothing to do with this, and they recognize this, they understand this. So we've had our meeting with TDEC, the person that in charge of this Department of Remediation, you might say. And this is probably the simplest difficulty that one could have, but we're in a position to enter into this agreement, and I'm just going to let Jeff sort of outline this and go forward from here if he'd like to. And this is a template of an agreement that they sent him, and there's only a few things that we haven't even put in here. All right, so Jeff, you can tell them how this is going to work and what we have to do, public comment-wise, etc.
Well, I think there are two issues, I guess, with respect to the issues that have come up after the testing. One is, well, does the detectable elements of the vinyl chloride that you see in the report, does that prevent your prospective use of the property from a practical standpoint? From our conversation with Briggs and Maloney and from our conversation with TDEC, they think that it only affects the groundwater, which is some 40 or 50 feet deep beneath the surface. So there's not any water that's affected on top of the surface. They had to dig down. These wells were over 40 feet deep. They dug where they found the issues here. In the big scheme of things of pollutants, the TDEC mitigation guy did not think this was a major problem. He did not classify this as a major problem. He kind of considered it a minor problem. So when you look at what your prospective use for the county of this site is, there is no indication from Briggs and Maloney or TDEC that the issues that they discovered with respect to this one vinyl chloride element to really unreasonably interfere with your use of that property as you're planning on using it. So that's the first element that we would like to look at. The second thing is, from a liability standpoint, does this create any liability on the part of the county if the county buys this property to clean up any future issues pertaining to this contamination, either on our property or on any adjoining property? And with respect to the liability issue, that's where the brownfield agreement comes into play. Because what the brownfield agreement does is a program that the state has established per federal guidelines to allow innocent parties to purchase properties that have been affected by contaminants, yet not to have any exposure for liability should there be an issue with respect to cleanup or any future contamination in the future. So it's basically a program for innocent parties to come and take participate in, and provide the innocent party a way to buy property that may have an issue on it that you did not cause. So that's the purpose of the brownfield program. And when you go in the brownfield program, what it does two things. It protects you from liability from the state. So if you participate in the brownfield program, you're not required to do anything to clean up the contamination on the property or mitigate it beyond what you have agreed to do in the brownfield agreement with the state. So it gives you protection from a state standpoint. The EPA and the federal agencies rely heavily upon the state to administer their programs and their protective laws with respect to the environment. So it gives you a large degree of protection from the EPA. The TDEC representative we talked with did not think that EPA will come and ever look at this or question it if we entered into a brownfield agreement. So the TDEC official we talked with felt very confident that it would never be an issue if we entered this brownfield agreement where the EPA will come in and try to make us clean up the site or do anything on our own. The other thing that brownfield agreement does is gives you a good measure of protection from other third parties, from neighboring property owners and so forth, who could subsequently allege in the future that somehow there's some contamination that occurred on your property that spread to their property. Because what the brownfield agreement says, it says that it identifies you as an innocent party, and it says you did not create the contamination of this property. So you have an official government record at that time finding that you are not the creator of the problem that exists on your property. So from that standpoint, it gives you a large measure of protection from any neighboring properties alleging that somehow you have hurt their property or damaged their property by virtue of what you're doing on yours. So you've got a report here that has been signed off on and approved by the state that says that the studies that have been done show that you're not the cause of the problem on your property and that you should not have any liability associated with it. So towards that end, that's the purpose of the brownfield agreement. So it's a mechanism for innocent parties, such as the county would be in this case, to be able to buy property that may have a small contamination problem with it, but not anything that would create any liability for us in the future with regard to that. Now, so that's the purpose of the brownfield agreement. In the big scope, that's what it does for us. It protects us from liability from TDEC. It largely protects us from liability issues with EPA, and it protects us from liability from neighboring property owners. Now, to participate in this program, you have to do some things. You're entering into a voluntary compliance program, even though you did not create the problem. There's a small fee that the state charges to get in the program. I think it's about $3,000 to participate in the program. That's something they, I guess, charge just to defer the cost of overseeing the program and getting everything set up. And that's a flat fee that we'd be obligated to pay to get involved with the program. The other thing, we met with the TDEC and met with T. Greggs and Maloney, the TDEC mitigation official who's in charge of looking at these type of issues and seeing what mitigation would be appropriate in this case. Basically only found there's really two things that we would have to do to comply with what the state would want us to do with respect to the property. Those are, one is with respect to any building we build on the property, they would want us to put down a vinyl membrane on the pad underneath the building to kind of create, so there couldn't be any vapors coming up from the groundwater if it happened. They didn't think it would be likely to even happen, but should it happen, they would want a vapor barrier put in, which would be similar to what many people would have underneath their house. It would be a little bit thicker, but it's not a major expense. And just basically a plastic barrier to prevent fumes from coming up into the building, should there be any fumes there. So that was the first thing. The second thing, they would want us to put a restriction down on the property that we would record in the registrar's office saying we agree not to use the groundwater on the property for drinking purposes, and we would not dig a well on the property for drinking water purposes. Those are really the only two things that the state would require us to do. And if we did that, the state is going to say, we don't require any further action from you, you're good, you have no liability for this contamination. You can move on, you've done everything you need to do to address this issue. As part of that process, TDEC has a public notice period, similar as to what you would have for a lot of our meetings we have in the county, where they have to give public notice of this proposed agreement to everyone, all the citizens, the neighboring landowners, and we have to run a notice in the newspaper to give citizens a chance to comment on it. And it's basically a 30-day period where citizens can comment to TDEC, whether they oppose it or don't oppose it. They don't have to say anything. If they say, most likely, it will, most of the time, most people say nothing. If that happens, then TDEC will go ahead and sign the agreement. And once they sign the agreement, from our standpoint, we will get a no action letter from the state, and we don't have to take any further action at that point other than putting down the restrictive covenants on the property. And when we build the building on it, we'll have to have a vapor barrier down on the building pad that goes underneath the concrete when you pour the concrete for the footing and the foundation for the building.
It also keeps moisture down.
It does. It's something you probably would want to do anyway, so it's not a major expense that you would not have otherwise. But that's what the brownfield agreement does. If the county sees fit, if the county wants to buy this property and thinks it's suitable for what you guys are looking to use it for, I think the brownfield agreement gives you good protection against any kind of liability exposure with respect to the contaminants they found on the site. So that kind of takes that issue out of it. So at that point, you're kind of back to the first issue, whether you want to acquire this property for the intent that you wanted to acquire it for.
So basically, if we enter into this brownfield agreement and comply with all that, this basically would be a hold harmless agreement with the county that would hold us harmless of anything that might transpire in the future, you know.
Well, with respect to this existing contamination, yes. If we go out there and dump a bunch of chemicals on there, no.
Right,
But,
correct.
But for existing conditions, yes.
Does the city have a Brownsville agreement?
You know, I think they're negotiating that with the city now. I don't think that's.
I think they may have the agreement, but I'm not sure they actually have the letter of what.
No action letter.
No, I don't think they have the no action letter quite yet.
Yeah, yeah.
But they've been there for quite some time.
They've been there for a while.
We are probably ahead of the city.
The city has they're a lot closer to where the contaminant was placed, so they're a little higher level of risk possibly there.
How deep are these wells?
They were over 40 feet deep. Let me look at the report here. One was 41.33 feet, and the other one's 50 feet.
They didn't hit a stream?
They say groundwater on test well 1, groundwater was encountered at 35 feet and a fracture in the bedrock. In well 2, they dug 50 feet and bedrock was encountered at 12 feet. Groundwater was encountered at 45 feet and a fracture in the bedrock.
So they're down in solid rock.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't
But
know.
there's water in solid rock. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
if you go down far enough.
Even though this is a minimal percentage, it would probably be in our best interest to go ahead and enter into this brownfield agreement for the amount of money involved. Would that be your recommendation?
I would not buy this
That's-
property unless you plan on
that's-
entering the brownfield.
I won't recommend buying it without us doing this. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the liability is slim to none, but I still think we need this protection from any liability. We've spent $18,000 on these 2 wells. We'll have to spend a few more $1,000s here to be done with this. And this increasing the thickness on this membrane that we go put under there is not going to be significant at all in the scheme of things.
The comfort level is worth what it would
Well,
cost.
I think we have a duty to protect our citizens from this kind of liability, and crazy things do happen, and I think we need to do this before we can move forward.
Jeff, does it allow them or put us at any exposure of any additional ongoing inspections or liability and cost incurred? down
Once
the
we
road?
get the no action letter from the state, we don't have to do anything further. We're done at that point.
In this agreement, there's a list of some other charges. We're not sure if any of those will apply to us, because we're not sure they're going to do anything else except
Well, TDEC has told me that they will not charge anything but the $3,000.
$3,000. I
And
think
so
there's a $750 application fee that goes
Right.
with it. So we got $750 plus $3, I believe, so. We think that should be
That's right.
handled, because I don't think there's anything else for anybody to do, because there's nothing there that's evident or creating a difficulty except what's underneath there that someone else created.
There's no more hoops to jump through, is there?
No,
It doesn't appear to be.
Doesn't appear to be.
So your recommendation would be approval as long as we enter into
The brownfield agreement, yeah. We've already got everything done, we've already appropriated money, you might say, but we need authority to proceed with the notice of this public notice, and subject to nothing happening there, nobody coming up with any resistance, you might say, approve the then simultaneous with the 30-day expiration. If there's nothing there that comes forward, then we want to be authorized to execute this agreement with the, we can't ever really execute. We can apply. We will apply and spend our $750. Do the public notice, and once it's completed, then we will sign it and pay them the $3,000.
Any more questions?
motion to approve the mayor's recommendation.
Got a motion? Got a second?
Second.
Any more discussion?
And your motion is apply for the brownfield agreement and proceed with the public notice.
And give authority to execute the brownfield agreement at the completion of the 30-day notice period.
We need to put the $750 and $3,000 in
Now,
there.
you don't need to do that. I'm paying that out of the small amount of money I have. I have a $10,000 engineering contingency every year, and I'll use that money. We don't need any budget approval. I'll just use that.
Okay, since there's no new money involved, we do not have to call the roll. So all those in favor of said motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you. Sounds good.
All right, so thank you very much.
Okay, next on the agenda is update on judicial building.
Okay, let me get a little bit of note right here. This is sort of a verbal update, and we're making remarkable progress, and we've iterated, and I didn't know that they had posted, but they posted the latest exterior elevations out there, and we've had a meeting with the Design Review Committee, which included several outside interested neighbors and other parties, and they've made some changes to primarily the last changes were to the entrance of the building, et cetera, which is, you can see that the front end will,
It's pretty.
yeah. Well, that right there is not the latest one. So they have, we
No,
got,
that's not the latest one.
this is not the latest version, so I don't know what they did. So the entrance is not the final changes that have been made. So just ignore that, come down to the office, but there is we can get this posted, but they didn't put this on here correctly.
There's two, looks like there's two,
I'm still thumbing, so maybe there's both sets are
I
on
see
here.
several versions.
Are there several versions? Okay, here we go. It's getting better, but I still hadn't got to the final version.
Some of them, I think, are the old versions.
They
still
are
have
the
a lot
old
of
versions.
glass.
Yes, sir, they sure are.
Bell Tower, they had up there.
I wish they hadn't put all of those versions. It's confusing as, my goodness.
Yeah.
Did you find anything, Charlie, that has the arch
Well,
as opposed to the flat roof on that entrance? Until you find that, that's not their
I
latest.
had-
okay, well, I was under the I think I'd heard from someone in the community that the green roofed entrance has been revised.
It
It's
has.
been-
So if there's
that's-
anything with a green roof, that's not the
Yeah,
latest.
that's every, so,
Mayor, is
this-
this what you're talking about?
no, that's inside the building there. That
It's
hadn't been
It's
changed.
an arch.
Yeah, there's
Green.
no arch pictures.
No,
The green roof on the outside.
it's still
It's
green,
supposed to be an
but it's
arch type.
it's an
deal.
arch instead of a flat component there.
That was the last design.
That's been the major last revision, and that, a lot of people were very happy about it. So I apologize for that being the most recent, not being the most recent version. But anyway, and then the Design Review Committee sort of blessed that with the blessing of several of our interested neighbors and other parties. And then the PBA have accepted that. They still want to iterate a little bit on that front there they thought maybe it had a little too many details of line in it, so, but that's so minor that it's insignificant, and for us that are not quite in tune with maybe what they're gonna do. But they're gonna try to work on that a little bit more, but that came from the PBA. Okay. I was gotta get back to my little set of notes here. And any number of things are happening, but with this latest version of the exterior design, we have started the process with getting this zoning changed with the city of Murfreesboro. And they have met with the city of Murfreesboro already with the planning commission, and the planning commission basically approved the design of the building, you might say, but they still have public hearings to go through, et cetera, so it's going to take several more steps through the planning commission to get official final approval. And let's see, I don't know if rezoning, the application was filed on August the 27th, and the workshop will be on September the 16th. They've already been there, and they got unanimous consent to move on forward. And the public hearing is going to be October the 7th. And then, after all of that takes place, if they're still on track, you still have to go through the city council. I don't know whether it's 1 or 2 times, but it's going to take a while to get through all the steps. And they're changing it's currently zoned commercial highway, but they're applying for a plan that's institutional development. And they're adding in some zero setbacks and some height exceptions as well. So that's moving good. They were extraordinarily pleased with it, it appears, at the planning commission. You guys can probably, if you've got some questions, it might be better me trying to figure out what you don't really know. There was a mock courtroom built in the printing area of the D&J building, and on September the 14th they had a lot of people in there to review that, and even after that it was reviewed again. They kept it open 2 or 3 days, so the judges has been there, and several interested parties have been in there, and there have been a few small changes that have been suggested, which they'll take under advisement and probably implement, so everybody's happy with that. There have been 2 rounds of discussions with all of the users, whether that's the clerk's office, whether that's the sheriff's and the security, whether that's technology and building maintenance, etc. They've made 2 iterations reviewing all the detail of the drawings, the spaces that are going to be built with each of these users, and they are at 99.9% consensus. Everybody's pretty much agreed what we got and how it's been designed is acceptable, and they like it. So the actual design and the layout of each floor is well almost completed. So they're still, now they'll have to put this in a position where they can continue this journey of getting good hard bids. And there's 5 areas that contribute a large percentage of the actual cost, and they've actually identified 5. Well, at the last meeting they had 4, and 1 more subcontractor had not yet been selected. 2, for example, Nashville Machine has been selected for plumbing and HVAC. Gaylord Company has been selected for electrical. Alexander Metals has been selected for curtain wall windows. So you ask about how we were going to take these bids. We're working directly with the subs even now. These large subs in particular, they have been specifically selected through a selection bid kind of process, so that we can get good input from them on the cost, depending on how these things are designed and what have you. So this is these windows and the brick and the concrete, you might say, up there is precast kind of stuff. It's not, you're not going to lay individual bricks. All of this is formed. So they've selected a company for the precast structure part of it. So Bell Construction is working with all these design assist subcontractors and et cetera. So they're working feverishly along with the architect to by December early to have a hard number on what all this is going to cost. Right now, they tell us we're in budget. So that's a good thing. And we have to stay in budget. So we've done a little bit of, we spent a little bit of money out of the design money, and Griggs and Maloney has helped us with this. So just last week, we've had to go back and review, find out if any asbestos is in those old buildings or the D&J building. We know there's a little bit of asbestos in the office area of the D&J. It's not much, but we've had to go in all of our other buildings over there on Maple Street to evaluate that, so that when we actually take the bids for demolition package, we can identify what has to be done there. So they're not, I mean, this is a lot of detail is going into all of this, and they're not missed. So on October the 19th, all of those buildings are supposed to be vacated. That's the notice that we've given them. So sometime between October and early November, we'll demolish those buildings. And according to the PBA in our schedule, we need final funding in place by February the 1st of next year. We'll do the demolition within the money that you've already approved for this design process. Any questions?
It's a big project.
This is probably our best opportunity ever to make this happen, and we've got to do it because
We miss it.
we're already out of space right now, and we're going to get, the need is going to increase every single day.
Mr. Mayor, is there, on the courtrooms, I guess they're different sizes?
All the courtrooms are the same size.
Same size, okay.
So
Do you
they-
know how much the audience sections sit?
It's still over there. It might be, if any of you guys want to look at that sometime, we could get them to open that building up. It is really much more space in there than I thought it was going to be there for the audience. It's quite a lot more than we typically have over here now.
Okay.
That is wondering, so I don't know how many, they didn't have chairs in there,
Right.
but it's substantial.
So quite a bit more than.
Yes. That gives all kinds of flexibility. Anybody can be in any courtroom that they need to be in, and everybody doesn't have to be, I guess you could say, assigned to just one location.
From all the feedback, everyone seems well pleased with the layout and everything else. All the judges, the remarks that they made, they seem well pleased with the design of it.
They've all been involved, and they've
Yeah.
visited, they've been over there, and they've sat in the judge's seat, and et cetera, and just
I think
got a
they're-
feel for it already.
I think they're just thrilled to be able to get out of where they are.
Oh, absolutely.
In more acceptable surroundings.
Okay,
Well, they deserve it. I mean, we need it.
we do. Well, we're gonna have to work together to find out a way to fund this appropriately, okay? All right.
Any more questions?
It's not an insurmountable task.
No, but it's not an easy task.
It's not an
either.
easy task,
I'm
but
not
it is
sure
not
we have
insurmountable.
any easy task anymore.
If we're going to accommodate 30,000 more people in the next 4 years in the county, we've got to be proactive.
Any more questions on the new judicial building?
Before you adjourn, well, maybe if you ask for any other business, I want
Any other business?
to, I wanted to sort of put this on the table. You guys don't have to, and I really should have made you copies of this, but just let me get this only half a page, so let me just sort of lay this out here and tell you what I propose to do. You may not have to do anything except say, okay, I think you got a good idea. Let me talk a little bit about the use of this courthouse. When I got here, there was a form, and we're still using this form, that if you want to use the courthouse, you have to fill out this request, and Vicki coordinates all that, and the mayor signs off on it. I'm not proposing to change that, but I'd like to just sort of tell you what I think. I want to sort of put it a little bit more formalized kind of way. And this is, I'll just read this off to you quickly. The policy for use of the historic Rutherford County Courthouse. Let me tell you what sort of is driving some of this discussion in my own mind. Allowing people to be in here, individuals, groups, and otherwise, after hours is creating, I think, putting us at pretty substantial risk. And I've just written down there's three things, one of which is more important than the other two. It is compromising, and you know the environment that we're all living in now with security. It's compromising the security of critical assets in the offices of technology, and I'm not going to explain all of what's there, but that is critical and crucial. The trustee, of course, the finance department, and the mayor's offices. I know way in the world we could keep people out of these places if they come in here trying to get in there while they're in here, and we're not. We may have a person in here opening and closing, but no way you can watch everything that's going on, and there's a lot of cuddy holes and little rooms you can get into, and we wouldn't even know they're in there. So I'm really, with everything that's happening, I'm seriously concerned about the security of these critical assets. And number two, which I was more concerned about a few earlier years, 2 or 3 ago, it's costing us money. We're having to pay overtime to get somebody to come open, close, and stay here and watch this stuff, and we're not charging anything for these people to be there. And sometimes they mistreat our restrooms and mess them up and use, and that takes more work. So, you know, the cost of this is one little piece of it, but the security issues, I think it bears us doing something proactive before something happens. So I've got this in three little components. Use of the inside of the courthouse during normal working hours of 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. That's group number one. And my little sentence here, probably it allows anybody to make an application. As long as we're occupying all these spaces, I think we can somewhat manage. But I basically have said here, all county offices, committees, departments, individuals, and outside agencies must request and receive permission from the mayor's office. That's the way we're doing it right now. There's no change, okay? Use of the inside of the courthouse after normal working hours to include weekends. Now again, all county offices, our committees, our departments, and other government-related functions must request and receive permission from the mayor's office. So I've limited the number of people that can get permission. They have to request it, but can get. But the second part of this, use by individuals and outside agencies will not be allowed. That's inside the building. And number three is use of the outside of the courthouse at the inner circle. We have just been very, very liberal. We just let anybody do that wants to, and I think that's probably still okay. But my statement on that is all county officers, committees, departments, individuals, and outside agencies must request and receive permission from the mayor's office. That's no different from what we said in number one for normal working hours. And we're more generous out there with people that want to do that than we would be inside the buildings. Use, and here's the only little bit of exception we have here. Use of the south side restroom facilities and other non-office spaces, for example, this room here, may be granted permission only for other government functions and nonprofit organizations that hold public events of broad public benefit and interest. So this is just sort of codifying or put in writing what I think we should do, and most of this we're sort of doing now, but I sort of want a little bit of documentation on what I think is a reasonable policy. So this group, Mr. Chairman, you guys could review this, and I apologize for not making you some copies, and just accept it as my recommendation and a policy that I'm going to, what do you call these? It's an executive order.
Effective
I tell you, Vicki and I have been agonizing over this for a year or so. And when you start trying to write down who can and who cannot come, it's nigh on to impossible. But with a broad definition here, and with putting
About
enough,
holidays.
letting the mayor and Vicki determine schedule and the practical implementation of this, I think is the right approach, okay? Without a whole lot of public debate about what we're gonna do. So if you wanna let it reflect that the mayor has presented this, and this is the policy that we'll follow without objection, but to something to that effect, I don't know how you wanna do it, but I'm gonna have to leave that up to you.
So is the outside still okay, or?
The outside is okay, anybody can more or less have it out there, but if they wanna use those restrooms, if they wanna come in here and use this room to dress and put on costumes and stuff, that takes, I want to go allow that to happen for other governments, or our government functions, or other governments to do this, and for nonprofit organizations like Main Street, and like the Main Street puts on the Christmas program, and they have these kids and things that come in here, and enough of us are here to supervise that. It's not just, we're not leaving them all by themselves, and they need a few rooms like this to congregate. So we would give a little flexibility there to come inside the building. But some of these are primarily outside, but they want to use the restrooms, or they may need to use the space for dressing or otherwise. So I just want to let you know that we've been thinking about this, and unless I hear otherwise, this is probably going to be put in Vicki's folder along with her application, and when I'm gone or she's gone, there'll be a little bit of clarity here on what we think is appropriate.
Have we had any incidences?
No, we haven't. Thank goodness we have not.
Been fortunate.
We've just really been fortunate. But
Maybe you're wise by starting this. I've been to a couple events here that I think have been very nice. One was an Eagle Scout ceremony. A young man was getting his Eagle Scout and had the ceremony in the courthouse in there, and it was after hours. Part of me I'd be kind of disappointed to see things like that stop. But I understand what you're saying. I don't know, I hate to take it too far. I can give you a personal example. MTSU's got a whole campus full of classrooms, and it's virtually impossible to get one, even for me. I mean, you have to plan it weeks in advance and reserve it. I mean, they're all empty. They're empty in the evenings, most of them, a lot of them, but it's virtually impossible to get one. I enjoyed the Eagle Scout ceremony over here.
well, and we've got a page or two of things like that, and there are some that I'm concerned about. But we'll have to see how we might work through that.
You mentioned,
Well, you see, this is broad enough, this last sentence, to allow a person like me, nonprofit organizations that hold public events for broad public benefit, I can stretch that back and forth if we choose to. But I can also use it not to allow folks that I don't think should be in here.
Mhm.
It gives a bit of flexibility in making some of those decisions.
are people coming in on holidays? We don't have holidays in that. Do you have weekends?
Well, holidays would be anytime, that would be included in the, anything after normal working hours.
Yeah.
It's disconcerting to realize that that's the climate of the times.
Well, even if it's a really a credible organization, those doors are open.
Sure.
Hey, as soon as our housekeeping people open these doors up at 7 o'clock or whatever time they open them up, people in here using these restrooms before I even get in the building here. And they can go anywhere else they want to. They hopefully can't get in their offices because they're locked, but it doesn't
It
take
just
much.
keeps honest people out.
That's it. If they want in those offices, they can get in them. And we got some places that we cannot allow them in. It would shut the county down for months.
I think it's a prudent thing to do.
All right, so I'm gonna give this copy over to Becky, and she can put that in the minutes as you want her to put in there, but we'll sort of start to use that as a guide, and we won't be rigid in what we do, but we'll be thoughtful.
She can put it in the minutes, and do you think you need to give a copy to each commissioner.
Well, we can do that. I can certainly
Only,
put-
only reason I say that sometimes a commissioner from a district is hit up
Yeah.
with somebody asking about
I understand.
usage of the building. So if we
Well,
got,
we'll put a date on this as of the day, we'll put it in everyone's box.
sounds good to me.
We don't have a motion.
So we, yeah, we can have a motion to that effect. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion? Have a second? Second. Any more discussion? Any more discussion?
No.
If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Any other business come before the Property Management Committee? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.